All right, everybody. Welcome to the 327th edition of the Holy Backboard Podcast. I am Dustin here in Rip City, and I got my man.
What's up, y'all? Sage is here, ready to talk about this talk more draft. This is what gets me excited, man. Us playing 40 plus minutes a night to beat the worst teams in the league with major injuries doesn't get me excited. But these 19, 18, 20-year-old prospects that have all the potential in the world kind of motivate me to talk about basketball. So I'm very excited about another Future Fridays episode, and we have a prospect that is one of the most athletic guys in the NCAA.
Yeah, we're talking about Villanova freshman Cam Whitmore, 6'7", 225, currently ranked as the second overall power forward by Tankathon. And he was a five-star. He was the 10th overall player in the class of 2022 from Maryland, decided to stay on the East Coast, play with the Villanova Wildcats, who have had an uncharacteristically bad, mediocre season by their
They're meh.
standards. They are 16 and 15 on the year, sixth in the Big East. Jay Wright is no longer there, so it's hard to tell. Like when I'm looking at a prospect, some of the things that go into my thought process are what school are they from? Because college coaches have a track record for how their players produce in the league. For the longest time, you didn't want to touch a Duke Blue Devil. You still probably didn't want to touch a Syracuse Orange. Outside of, Carmelo Anthony was that exception. On the other hand, John Calipari and Jay Wright continuously sent players to the league year after year after year. But with Jay Wright no longer in the fold in Villanova, it's a little bit of a different process. But Cam is a very unique prospect in the class of 2023. At the moment, in 23 games, he's getting a lot of time, 27 minutes per game, 12.6 points on the season, shooting 47% from the field, 34.5% from three, 73% from the line, grabbing 5 rebounds, and really just getting 1.5 steals, almost an assist per game, and a half a block per game. So not much there. But again, it is a little tricky to look at college statistics and make a direct comparison to how that will correlate or translate over to the next level. But if you do look at his per 36 minutes, that does jump up to 6.7 rebounds, nearly 2 steals per game, and 17 points. So, Sage, when we're looking at a player like Cam Whitmore, I think he's probably one of the most unique prospects in this draft. I feel like as basketball players evolve, we're going to continue to see like players who were not able to compare to former or current NBA players any longer, whether it's Victor Wembanyama, Amen Thompson, even Chet Holmgren last year. Like there's going to be these outliers, and it's fun, but it's also difficult because you can't look back at someone and say, oh, this player reminds me of X and this is how they played in the league. Now it's even more of a crapshoot because if you look at the Ringer and what their
Oh, I'm very
comparison,
excited about this one.
their comparison for Cam Whitmore isn't even a player. It's shades of a semi truck with a Ferrari's accelerator. They have him as the 8th overall prospect in this class. The
Are,
bonuses for him: positional versatility, athleticism, feel for the game, and everyone's favorite, got that dog in him. So, Sage, tell me a little bit about Cam Whitmore and why he was the second player that we decided to discuss for the class of 2023 Future Friday edition.
well, he's projected in where the Blazers potentially could have picked before they won those 2 games. When you look at those highlights of Cam Whitmore, you see somebody that's like a physical freak going downhill one direction. He is that dude athletically. You see him throw the ball off the backboard, catch it, and then dunk it. Like that athleticism is pretty damn rare. As I once I went past the uh the highlights, I looked at him and there was a lot to his game. I think a lot of it comes off that athleticism. And I think we need to talk about athleticism. We have a guy in Shaden Sharp that's 99th percentile athlete.
I 100. Like
Okay.
I think if you're 2K, you give him that 100 rating for
Okay.
athleticism.
I'm cool with that. I don't give Cam that.
No,
I think as a athlete that can go straight line, he's pretty there. But once you have to go laterally anyway, then that athleticism kind of goes away, which is very worrisome if you're talking about a guy that's an athlete. The second he has to go lateral,
you're
it's
also
not good.
talking about an undersized forward,
I truly don't believe he's 6'7".
and you're also looking at. I think there's a difference when Shaden is a beast wherever he jumps off of, but there's a distinct difference when Cam jumps off
Oh
of
yeah.
2 feet versus when he jumps off of 1 foot. When he jumps off of 2 feet, he pops. He's a top 5 prospect to me. And then I started watching more, and I was like, the athleticism isn't wowing me like it should if I'm
Oh, it
looking
does.
at a top 10 player. And how often are you going to be able to get to that 2 foot gather? It's not. You're more likely to get your momentum off of a 1 foot jump. Just in the game of basketball, especially playing with the NBA's elite talent. So that is probably one of the biggest worries for me, is that explosiveness off of 1 foot isn't. If the 2 feet is A plus, the 1 foot's probably a B.
He can get the job done, but it's not gonna be like, it looks like he has like springs in his shoes when he jumps off 2. But the second it goes off 1, it's just like, oh, he is a fine athlete. And when your main thing is he is a great athlete, but in certain scenarios, which happen in the NBA quite a bit, he's a fine athlete, it gets you to worrying. I think we should talk about his pro parts of his offensive game first before we go to the bad parts. I think
The pro parts for me, what jumped out was you're watching early season Cam Whitmore, and the reason he skyrocketed up draft boards is you get visions of Philadelphia 76ers, Charles Barkley, head down, playing the passing lanes, a bat out of hell. He's just like a battering ram. And then he's doing these 2 foot Euros bouncing through the lane. And you're like, my God, how is he not like the number 3 prospect in this class? Like, he's missing shots, but then doing a quick Dominique Wilkins like one hand putback slam, just the bounce that he has immediately around the rim. Like, he also has a bit of a handle for his size. Like, he's got a little bit of, for his size, he has shown against collegiate players. You want to talk about pros? I'm giving you the pros. Against collegiate players, he has that Zion ability to kind of get even just the slightest advantage, but then lower the shoulder, use the force, and create the space that way. I don't know if that's going to translate NBA, but you're looking at a collegiate prospect. He is able to kind of wreak havoc. And what does give me hope, we watched the collegiate game stage. It is packed in there like some sardines. The NBA is wide open. He's going to have much more room to operate at that level. And he's probably not going to have the eye of every defender like he is at Villanova. So he's probably just going to worry about one guy. And if I think he is a bit of a matchup pick. So you get him in there, a change of pace, because we really haven't seen a lot of players with his power, his athleticism, but he does have nimble feet. Like, we're not, rest in peace. We're not talking about Caleb Swanigan as an undersized forward here, really not able to move like that. Like, he does have some nice feet to him. So I think there is a path where I see him developing that ability to operate on the perimeter, tighten up the handle, and get that first step around there. So I do see that. And the shot isn't broke. It's
no.
not where it needs to be, but I don't think the form is anything to scoff at. I think he probably needs to be a bit of a catch and shoot guy at the NBA level. Right now, he's doing a lot of one dribble between the legs,
he's moving,
pull up, and that's a difficult shot for a 19-year-old to master. And you can look at his game logs. I know he had an injury early in the season, and I was watching some videos, and they were saying like January it started to tick back up percentage wise, but then I started looking at the February logs, and you're seeing a lot of 0 for 5s, 1 for 6s from three. And to me, that's okay. What you want to see is a form. Like, can that form start to replicate accuracy? And I believe that, especially if he's not being asked to be the number one option. So I don't think the shot's broke. We're going to talk later about prospects like Amen Thompson. I think that shot's probably broke, and you can't fix that. With Cam, I think you can correct that to become a league average shooter. It takes, again, work ethic, practice, repetition, all of the above. But we've seen that before. Will Barton, Nasir Little, both came to Portland not known for the jump shot, and I think they've become respectable shooters at this level. It can be done, but at least when I worked with the team, Will Barton was known for his regimen and how hard he worked to try to get that to a league average. If Cam has that, and by all accounts, he has a desire for the game, and that's another thing that I think is a plus. Like, he just has a lot of heart and hustle to his game, and I think that's going to play in his favor wherever he gets chosen.
So I think that when you talk about Cam, you talk offensively, you talk about on ball and off ball. I think the off ball player is a much better, and it has a much easier track of hitting his potential.
And I think right away that's where he'll thrive, is off ball.
Yeah, I don't think his handle's good at all. I think it's quite bad. But if he can he's a very good cutter. And I know the Blazers haven't utilized cutting. I don't remember being a fan of the team when they utilize cutting.
Well, Shaden's the only one that cuts, and he gets the ball half the time.
Yeah, like, I remember when we signed Airplane Mode.
DJ,
and I thought, if we allow him to cut off ball, then that provides spacing. We didn't. And then you look at all of the other players on the Blazers since the Terry Stotts era and the Chauncey Billups era, and there's no cutting. But I look at what he can do as a cutter, as a off-ball player. I think the shot's gonna be okay, but the second that you put the ball in his hands, it gets worrisome. I would just stick to him to be like a Desmond Bane type of off-ball guy. Obviously, the shot's not going to be Desmond Bane, but if you look at how they move, they're kind of similar with the thick body and like the powerful athlete, not the finesse athlete. But when he has to create for himself, it gets to a lot of getting blocked off because he isn't good enough dribble-wise or creative enough to get past college defenders. And I know the spacing is an issue, and this very bad Villanova team is also an issue, but he gets blocked off by like random wings that I don't know in that conference. I really wish that Jay Wright was there, because when you look at those Villanova wings, they cut and pass. Cam Whitmore doesn't get an assist a game. So like, that's a lot of issues. He has to get his shot correct. He has to be able to find a way to get to the hoop easily. He has to dribble. He has to pass. Like, that's a lot of things to get to the peak that we think it is. But like, as negative as I'm being about what Cam is, he provides a lot with that athleticism offensively, because he's a very willing participant in cutting and moving and scoring. He does score well.
Yeah, and when I say I think his handle is good, I mean, my bar is low. I'm used to Maurice Harkless and Al-Farouq Aminu as my forwards, and I don't think they could really, no disrespect, I don't think they could put any sort of dribble package together. So he is able to at least do that. So that's my bar.
I think my you have to get to this high for me to say you're a good dribbler. You're down here. You're quite a bit lower. But I think playmaking and dribbling is one of the things that he needs the most work on.
And that takes time, right?
Definitely.
As high as we are,
didn't come into the league like that.
As high as we are on Shaden Sharp, those are his two deficiencies, right? He needs to improve on that, and we both believe he will. But when we're talking about 19-year-old prospects, you do have to have a little bit of faith, and you have to kind of look beyond what you're seeing. Like, are they able to move laterally? Do they have a quick first step? Does it look like it can be repetitive and into something? Because I tell you, Jeremy Grant probably didn't have that when he came out of college and played with the Sixers. Like, it takes time. So when you are drafting someone, hopefully your organization is patient And you can say, okay, 5, 6, 7 years down the road, this is where we envision him to be. But even if he doesn't become a playmaker, I still think there's value in the rebounding. I think there's value in the cutting, and I think there's just value in the playing in the passing lanes and just having that hustler on your roster just to kind of energize the team. And I think that's something that Portland lacks a bit, to be quite honest. And I think there's always going to be a spot for that type of player in the league. I mean, coaches love players that dive on the floor, that kind of are gritty, and will just do whatever it takes to get in the open court, because that's really where he is going to thrive. Is, can you get him the ball in the open court? There's a little bit of Jerome Kersey to that. Like, if he can play the lanes, like, just, you're going to want to get out of his way. He is like a freight train off the tracks, and nobody's going to
man's body already.
Yeah, nobody's going to want to take that charge.
He's physically built for, I'm fucking running through the wall and you better get the hell out of the way type of athlete, because he is a wide, strong man at 226 or however he, like, I don't believe that he's 6'7". I do believe that he's 225 at least. He is,
the ringer has him listed 6'7", 7-foot wingspan, 232 weight.
Yeah, I believe that weight. And it doesn't look like he needs to lose any weight. He's got his man's body ready. I do like I think he has shown some rotational skill on defense as well. He is a very good rebounder for his size, but I think that with that athleticism and on defense, you can jump off too, because you have the time to actually set your feet and jump. I think that he could be a very good rotational defender if, like, let's say he is actually 6'7" and is the power forward on the team. Like, I think that he could be a really good rotational shot blocker, and like, he can put some defense on that rim side, because we've seen in the last 20 games with Drew Eubanks, like, he has the ability to block shots, but he doesn't have the, like, patience to not jump. I think if you have Cam Whitmore help side, it makes things a lot more easy for him. So I think there's rotational stuff that he does. There's jumping the passing lanes. And I truly don't think that he'll ever be taken out because he's targeted defensively. Like, I think that at worst, he's going to be an okay defender. At best, I think he could be a really pesky off-ball guy. Like, the athleticism defensively makes it so there is that threshold that he'll always be able to hit as long as he's athletic enough. Do you have anything else you want to say about Cam, or do you want to go to the comps, which I know are very tricky?
Well, let's talk about his defense and his position. Like, one of the pluses the ringer said was position versatility. I almost think I know we're in a positionless game, but when I think about Cam Whitmore and what Cam Whitmore is, not even just to the Blazers, but how he would be used, I don't love him as a 6'7" power forward, just because the rebounding is good, but it's not great. Like, we're not talking about a Charles Barkley, Dennis Rodman type of rebounder, but I don't know if he's going to be able to stick with the Jason Tatums, the Kevin Durant's of the world at the small forward position. So, like, where does he play for you defensively? Is he able to switch on the perimeter? And, we talked about the straight line athleticism, but laterally, is he going to be able to switch? Is he going to be able to guard 2s and 3s? Like, yes, he can be a matchup nightmare on his end of the floor, but can he be exposed given the lack of height? Because if you don't think he's 6'7", I know he has the wingspan. To me, I'm envisioning him more playing the 3. I think you need a bigger 4 and 5 along with him. Mm-hmm. I just don't know if you can go small with Cam if you're Portland and you already have a small backcourt, so to say.
I think that defensively, I think that when he's off ball, I feel like he's very lazy with his defense. And I watched every
and, like, what 19-year-old isn't really? Like, I harped on Paolo Banchero for that, and that knocked him down probably more than he should have been in my rankings for that. So that's something I'm trying to keep in mind. Yes, I totally agree.
I think he has to be on ball or he's not engaged.
Yeah.
But Nasir Little probably has to also do that. Shaden Sharp probably also has to do that.
Off-ball defense is hard to play in the league.
Well, and unfortunately, the last prospect we watched before Cam Whitmore actually is a good defender. So it's tough to go from Jarris, who does everything textbookly perfect, to Cam, who got back cut to death against, I think, guys that aren't going to be in the NBA, not even going to be rotation players in Europe, and he's getting back cut. So I agree that off ball is hard, especially for a guy like Cam and Nasir. But right now, when I look at him, like if he's not engaged fully, he's not a good defender. But I think years of learning a scheme and stuff will help. But if you rated him out of 5 stars, I think he's a 3-star defender. But like the only way he raises that grade is if he's just a hellish defender in the passing lanes. It's because I had to watch him. I didn't believe that this Cam Whitmore in the highlights that I'm watching is the same guy that's putting up like 5 points in a game and then 20 points in another game. The disappearing act was crazy. So I watched, I'm like, he really isn't engaged unless he has like the ball in his hands and he's guarding the point of attack. And I'm like, I don't know if that's really those highlights take the best part of one game. And then it's like, okay, I see against for several different teams, but it's only one highlight. It's like, damn, everything looked good in this highlight package that somebody curated and made, so it looks like this guy's a top 5 prospect. I don't believe that after watching him. I don't believe that he's a top 5 prospect, but I do believe his ceiling is really incredibly high because of his athleticism.
I was watching something on Cam, and one of the content creators made a comment, and it stuck with me. Is Cam Whitmore more just of an idea of a prospect?
So. Yeah.
Right. I mean, and they made the comparison to Patrick Williams. Like when the Bulls took him 4th, Patrick Williams wasn't a finished product. He was more of an idea. And that idea has never fully materialized in Chicago. Injuries can be chalked up to that, but also just the production and what Chicago was hoping for hasn't really been what they were looking for, especially taking a player that high. So I definitely have cooled on Cam as well. Like you definitely fall in love with some of the highlights and off of the 2 feet, and you just see a bowling ball out there, and you're like, this guy is really fun and could just be a destroyer of oppositions if he's on your roster. And I was definitely ready to take him, I think, with our top 10 pick, but I'd be more comfortable, I think, in the late teens, early 20s. Again, he's not going to last that long.
Lasting with that,
but I think he's more of an idea. And we were texting. Yes, he has one of the highest ceilings of this class, but he also has a pretty low floor. So the range is pretty vast. And the chances of Cam hitting that ceiling
so unlikely
is pretty minuscule. Like we're not talking about a Zion or even a Barkley where they're producing at the collegiate level. So you can somewhat anticipate that at the NBA level. Like when you have a player who's inconsistent in their production, that makes it a little bit more challenging to say, okay, well, if they're not producing here, what makes us think that they're going to be able to do it consistently at the NBA level? And yes, there are differences between the two styles of play, the competition, the rules, spacing, all of the above. But generally, when you get these unicorn type talents, they put it together against a level of competition. It's one of the reasons why I am high on Victor Wembanyama, because when he goes up against competition, he looks like the best player on the floor. That's what you want to see, because you can then say, okay, well, if he's here, he's basically ready for his promotion, right? It's no different than anybody in the workforce. You're doing your job great. It's not like, oh man, this person shows a lot of potential, but when we get them on a call, they kind of clam up, right? And then you want to give that promotion. You wouldn't feel great about that. So that's the hesitation I have. I am interested to see.
Last time bully ball wings worked.
That's also a very valid point, because Does bully ball work in the NBA? I don't know, unless you're a freak, unless you're a one of
Luca.
one, like Zion. Like, look back at Michael Beasley. And one of the reasons why I didn't believe Beasley was going to work in the league, because yes, he had a handle and yes, he had a jumper, but nearly, I felt like three-fourths of his production was going down in the paint and just bullying over undersized, undermatched defenders and just getting easy hooks and lands. And same thing kind of with Keegan Murray
Exactly. I was about to say that, but I didn't want to be a hater.
in Iowa. That's not, you can say that's him as a prospect, but what you're really looking at Keegan Murray is what's his NBA skill that's going to be translatable. And that's jump shooting. Like, that's what he's able to do. Like, you have to really remove everything he was able to do inside the paint, because that is not going to be applicable at this level. So when you're looking at a prospect and you see, oh man, Cam's just going in there and just dominating these guys, grabbing the rebound over 3-4 players and putting it back, that's not going to happen. Like, that's not going to happen against PJ Tucker and Joel Embiid. That's not going to happen against Brooke and Giannis. Like, it won't. So what can he do that will be able to take over and produce at the league level? I'm excited to hear your comp, Sage. Who do you have as his absolute floor? And mine are very wide and kind of off the wall.
I believe in his shot to be average. I think that he's athletically capable of being a good player. I think that Terrence Ross is going to be his floor. And Terrence Ross has been in the league for a long time and now is on a competitive roster for the first time in a very long time. But like, I see Cam as like a rotation guy that can be deployed in a very specific way, and he can use the God-given gifts. And I know Terrence Ross scored 50 once. I don't really think Cam's going to do that, but I do think that most likely Cam's going to be in the league for 10 plus years because of the athleticism and the fact that he's going to be a blue chip talent.
My floor is much lower. If the shot doesn't come around and he's not able to get that first kind of burst to get by defenders, I look at a guy like Stanley Johnson, who kind of came out of Arizona with a man's body, and he was dominating summer league. Like, I was like, oh man, this was the steal of the draft. And then he just goes to Detroit, and it really never materializes for him. He's not able to outmuscle, out quick, and he's out of the league. Like, I think his floor is the rookie contract's gone. We don't hear from Cam Whitmore anymore. Like, I do think that is a potential outcome for him. But when you see my ceiling, you'll see
no. My ceiling is quite high too.
You'll see that. I think a more league average, middle of the road comparison, Arkansas Razorback, middle of the 90s, Corliss Williamson, Big Nasty. He was a player who kind of played like a bat out of hell, undersized forward, athletic as all hell, and just played the passing lanes, finished with a lot of authority. Now, Cam has he's kind of like a Gen Z version of that. He's able to play on the perimeter a little bit more, but still, you're looking at a junkyard dog type of player who's just willing to go in there and do the dirty work, obviously has that dog in him. And if you're drafting, and Corliss Williamson was also taken in the lottery by the Sacramento Kings, won a natty with Arkansas in 94. So if you're drafting Cam, I think you can expect Corliss Williamson. He played multiple contracts, was a role player for many years, and had a fine career. Would you have taken him in the lottery knowing what you know now? Probably not, but I think that's the dice roll you're going to have to take with Cam. Like, I think 8 out of 10 times you're going to be like, I don't know if we should have taken that high. You're just really banking on those 1 or 2 chances that, yeah, we got the seal of the draft here. So that's where I have him middle of the road.
That's a very good one, man. That is a very good one. I was thinking Gerald Wallace for the 75th, but I've watched a game of him today, and I was like, he reminds me of Wiggins when he was in college, with the athletic profile, the fact that he can't really do anything on his own. He had to get assisted buckets. So maybe Minnesota, Andrew Wiggins, because I don't. If he hits,
he's got to be a thicker Wiggins, though, right?
Oh yeah, he definitely has.
Okay,
he's a thick boy, Andrew Wiggins.
Okay.
I'm very excited to hear what your your 90th percentile outcome is for him.
I mean, 99th percentile. Like if I'm seeing those highlights of him doing, 2 foot euros and put back dunks, that's Sixers Barkley to me.
Damn, you're
That
way
does he?
higher than me.
Yes, that's he. If he is able to get that in his bag, what Barkley was able to do was Barkley was able to have just enough of a first step, and then he used his power to get to the lane. I don't ever think he's going to get to the back to the basket game like Barkley, but I don't think the game is going that way either. So I think he's a more modern Barkley. Barkley added the 3-point shot. A lot of people don't remember that, but he was taking and making a little bit of threes, especially late in the games, and nailing them. The rebounding, there's potential. Barkley had a lot of dog in him. Barkley had a lot of athleticism and just a one of a kind. And that's kind of what I can think of. It's really hard to say, but that's what I'm saying. Like if you're looking at a player you're drafting a player that could be out of the league by his rookie contract or could be a potential Hall of Famer. Like that's why he's so unique as a player. And I do understand why teams would have him high on their board. But I mean, it is a bit of no pun intended, it is a lottery ticket that you're purchasing with Cam Whitmore. Your odds may not be high, but if you hit, you hit.
So I don't even put he is a power forward in my mind because I just never believed that he was tall enough to be that. So I looked at wings. I there's two guys that I think he reminds me the most of, and that's Anthony Edwards and Jaylen Brown. I think that he's going to skew more Jaylen Brown than he is Anthony Edwards because Ant has creation abilities where Jaylen Brown, of course, does, but he's also a really bad dribbler for his position, just like Cam. So I'm thinking a Jaylen Brown and Edwards hybrid that, I mean, shit, that'd be a game-changing player, but I just honestly, I think he tapped out at Minnesota Andrew Wiggins because I just truly I believe that it's there. I just think that a lot of shit has to go right for him to achieve the 90th percentile. Like when we look at Jarris Walker, I don't really think that. Sure, he has to hit at a league average level, but he can attain that. But with Cam, it's like he has to attain like 8 different things in order for him to get that Jaylen Brown comp, or he has to hit everything in the world has to go right for him to hit the Charles Barkley comp. So yeah, he has the ceiling, but I just don't think he reaches it because of all the things that have to go right. Like I can't be that lucky to think that the 10 things that I need to go right to get this thing that I want, it happens. I just, maybe he's that lucky, but I just don't believe that a human can get that lucky with everything going on and how flawed he is now with all of the stuff we talked about. But the ceiling is so high. Like if we drafted him, hopefully with the Knicks pick, I could talk myself into anything. But right now, after watching him play basketball, I'm like, he's really underwhelming me. All right, you got anything else you want to say, or did we wrap it up on Cam Whitmore?
I think we wrapped it up pretty good. We'll be back again for another episode of Holy Backboard this weekend. We'll have another Future Friday the following week, Prospect TBD.
I thought we were doing Jet.
Okay, I guess we're doing Jet Howard from Michigan. All right.
I enjoy watching Michigan play basketball. Juwan Howard's a pretty damn good coach.
Thank you all for listening. Sage, let our listeners know where they can find us, and let's take this one on home.
We are available on iTunes, Stitcher, Himalaya Podcasts, everywhere where you get your podcast. We are there. Leave a 5-star review, comment, and share when we post online. And thank you so much for listening, and we're out of here. Peace.